Hello, this is Greg Allison of Green Greg's, coming to you on the chilly morning of 10 May 2020 from the heart of Dixie. Yeah, chilly, 37 degrees this morning. That's not the topic though. The topic is a breaking news of a standoff between Chinese and Indian forces at the Nathu La Pass in the Himalayan mountains. And there's about 160 people there in a tense standoff at the moment. There are injuries on both sides. It is said to be really tense. So what do we care about that? Why do we in the United States care about that? Several reasons. One is that this is maybe part of a larger brewing thing that could pull us directly in. If it doesn't pull us directly in, I'll go more into that in future videos, maybe even this video. If it does not pull us in, there are other ramifications that could affect us in terms of trade, strategic alliances, the change of the political landscape, or even if there is a conflict between China and India, if there's any exchange of nuclear weapons, it is said that all it takes is 100 to put us into something of a nuclear winter. So there's a lot of things brewing. These are things that can affect you here at home. We are not isolated in this biosphere of planet Earth. That said, there is a bigger context here that you need to be aware of. It's a context described by Graham Allison. Dr. Graham Allison is professor of the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. He's 80 years old now and still really active. He came up with a term called Thucydides' trap. Thucydides was the first historian. He reported on the Peloponnesian Wars, in which Sparta got concerned about the rise of Athens. Athens was a rising power, challenging the existing power, and so there was quite a warfare between the two. Did not work out so well for Athens in the long run. As you may be aware, Athens was the side that would have been more democratic, probably the side we in America would tend to favor more. The Spartans were indeed Spartan and very warlike. So what happened is Graham Allison has identified 16 cases over the last 500 years in which rising powers have challenged existing powers, and he refers to that as Thucydides' trap. Out of those, there's only 4 cases that did not result in war. The first case was in the middle of the 15th century between Portugal and Spain, in which really the Catholic Church was probably the main arbitrator of that, and dividing the world between the two powers in order to avoid the conflict that might have brewed. So they managed to get along through the direction of the church, which they were both very loyal to at the time. Since then, until recently, most of these have led to war. When it has not led to war, was there was a, as the United States began to rise against the United Kingdom's power in the 20th century, there was no war there, but we were over there saving the United Kingdom in both World War I and World War II. So it was really those occasions that did not, lead to a conflict, because also we were very intertwined with the United Kingdom, and at the time, culturally, economically, there was just no prospect for war between the two. And the United Kingdom, in many ways, became the benefiter of a lot that we did. Like I said, we saved them. The other occasions was the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, in which probably the Soviet Union really wasn't staged to eclipse the United States economically. So that may be why that did not lead to an absolute hot war. Although there were people killed, there were shots, and many of the smaller wars that were hot were really part of that larger context. To say that was not a war is partly true, in that we didn't come to direct conflict, but it was definitely a very testy situation that lasted for decades. And some say it continues to this day, but Russia is not a power that's really rising economically in any way to displace the United States. So that could be a misnomer in that case. The other case is present with the United Kingdom, France, and other European countries with the rise of Germany within the European Union. But they evolved until the European Union, until Great Britain, United Kingdom just left the European Union, European community, whatever you want to call it. They're all in one big happy family within the European Union. So you know, that's probably why that's not leading to war, and also the United Kingdom really isn't in much of a position to go to war with Germany, and probably they don't have the heart for that. So that's really not in the cards right now. So Graham Allison was painting this picture vis-a-vis a potential conflict between the United States and China, which is still quite probable. We will go into that in more detail in a future video. I have talked about China's rise, the awakening of the dragon, and what China's doing in the South Pacific right now and throughout the world, and a couple of other videos earlier. And I will return to that topic. However, right now, you might say the situation between India and China is another Thucydides trap. A Thucydides trap that is regional within Asia, because India is also a rising power, and China presently is having some challenges with their rise to power because their economic base has been somewhat crippled by a recent pandemic that you may have heard of, and also by a trade, something of a trade war that President Trump initiated, and the fact that a lot of companies are now looking to move out of China. Top that, also the fact that wages in China have been rising so much that China's actually been going to Africa and other countries to look at putting in low-cost labor manufacturing facilities. So there's actually been some internet postings calling Africa China, China. Except China also seems to be coming into ownership of much of Africa by proxy or in reality. So there's a lot at stake here. And that could lead to a war between India and China. And India does seem to have a little bit more backbone in that regards than America in some areas, and it's more immediate. Also, China is a lot more interested in controlling their immediate surroundings in a closer time frame than they are dealing with the United States. They would prefer to keep us out of that and deal with that on their own now if they could. However, this may spill over because allies of India could include countries such as Vietnam, who is now suing India or planning to sue India in the World Court because China just came out and says there's a fishing ban in the South China Sea. Bear in mind that's within their so-called 9-dash line. In the South China Sea, it's, you know, way separated, though, over 1,000 miles away from China, way outside of what should be their economic zone, and it's right there at India and Malaysia and Indonesia. The South, China is claiming a region which is way beyond them in the midst of other countries, and telling those other countries they can't fish in what should be international waters. And that was even ruled that in a case between Philippines and China, the World Court decided and weighed in on the side of China, which China just ignored. But China does use the UN to their advantage, and the rest of the countries tend to follow what the UN dictates, as China is snapping up the allegiances of countries throughout Africa and the South Pacific, all those little bitty island nations that they're buying up the leaderships of. The Chinese presence and dominance of the UN is rapidly growing. So that is something you need to keep an eye on. It could have strong ramifications for how things play out in the geopolitical world that we live in. All these things said. Also, you might not know, but on the 24th of December, Indonesia ordered China out of their waters on an island, actually outside of the 9-dash line, one of the Indonesian islands, and China refused to go. So there was some challenges to that, and India finally just mobilized some warships and F-16s, and China backed off. Talk about warships, there's a Apache attack helicopter flying by. There it goes. I don't know if you saw that. Talk of war and worse, sky warships come by. Well, isn't that appropriate? All that said, Indonesia had the backbone. They stood up. They actually mobilized their military, and China backed off. Not that China probably couldn't beat them in a direct conflict. They just didn't want to deal with it at that point in time, because China is still trying to curry favor on the world stage. And that was before the pandemic became internationally known, by the way. They had a little, well, it was not a pandemic, but they were having a problem inside their country. All these things said, China is very adventurous right now. China has lost a lot of their economic oomph because of companies moving out, because of factories shutting down, because of their labor being high. So there's 3 things going on, really 4 with the trade challenge with the United States. So suddenly they're finding themselves in a precarious position. Any leader of a country like Xi Jinping's main objective is to maintain their power. It's not to serve their people. China doesn't serve their people. They maintain their own power. And they know that the people are getting restless. There's a lot of unhappiness in China. Quite often, a nation in a situation like that will create a war, even though it happens at great cost to the country. If it maintains the continuation, the continuity of the current leadership, they're typically okay with that, because their main objective is to stay in power. And for that reason, and because there can be gains if they win, and China does have the manufacturing capability to really prosecute major war, they may go for it. China is presently a dangerous country in that regard, I would judge, because they are economically wounded bear, you might say, or dragon. The dragon is economically wounded, and so the dragon may just lash out and breathe some fire. So that said, this is a situation that we need to pay attention to. It's just one ominous sign. But Vietnam, Indonesia, and India all seem to be the countries that are standing up to China more than anybody. We are on an economic standpoint. Taiwan would also do it. That's where we could get involved. We have an alliance with Taiwan, and all these things could spill over. That's what could pull us in. So, my friends, we live in interesting times. You may think of all this, nah, Greg, you're talking nonsense. Well, look what we just went through. Look what's going on right now. You know, I warned you guys about this kind of stuff early on, and a lot of people didn't believe it, and here it is. So keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. And always remember, my objective is to help you to survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. And in that regard, please check out my channel. The link's below. You can support my channel by clicking prepwithgreg.com or just going to prepwithgreg.com. Prepwithgreg.com has a special run right now on a 1-month long-term food storage for $100 off. Hard to beat. You can also get into all the other parts of the website of My Patriot Supply through that link, and I get credit whatever you purchase. That helps me out. So please check that out. This is a good time to prep. We may be in a lull between the next storm, there may be a second wave of other things coming at us, what's already been hitting us, and then again, there's all these other possibilities out there of military adventurism and some other stuff I may bring it up soon. So definitely now is time to prepare, to shore up your preparations. If you haven't been preparing already, God help you. This stuff is like straight out of Revelations, my friends. How else do you think a 200 million man army is going to cross the Tigris River? Read Revelations. Read about the 4 demons of the East. Who are they? Are they China, North Korea, Pakistan, Iran? Is that the 4 demons of the East? I wonder. I really wonder. You know, when you're reading Revelations, what is that? How else does a 200 million man army cross the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, heading west? So, and also there's all the large fraction of the world's population killed. Most of the people in the world live within a circle of something on the order of a couple thousand miles in the southeast China area. And that includes Indochina, Vietnam and those countries down there. Indonesia is the 4th largest country in the world in population. I believe India is the 2nd, China being the 1st. India is quickly rising to replace China in that area, as they're also rising in economic stature. Again, that evokes the notions of Thucydides' trap. And therein may be the reasons why we would have a conflict between India and China, as we may have a conflict between the U.S. and China, Thucydides' trap. So we may have a couple of Thucydides' traps ready to spring here. So if the probability of a Thucydides' trap springing is 75% as suggested by Graham Allison's analysis, and you got 2 Thucydides traps on the table, yes, things could happen, and it could get ugly, and it could affect us right here. And one trap might trigger another trap. If we get into it with China, I expect India would, probably be part of that, and vice versa. So, my friends, again, also, hey, it's planting season. Even if it is cold here in Alabama, yeah, we're having, early April weather in May, but it is planting season now. So also you can support my channel by going to True Leaf Market. I got a link below. Sometimes you got to click more to see all my links, but I got a link below to True Leaf Market. You can get heirloom seeds, which is the seeds you need to plant that you can replant the seeds from when you harvest them and get the same plants back. Hybrid seeds don't give you the same plant back. It gives you something usually lesser or maybe of very little value to you. So what you want is not hybrid seeds, heirloom seeds. So go to True Leaf Market, go to prepwithgreg.com, and with these things, you can take care of yourself, your family, so that you may all thrive, survive, and stay out of the hive. And with that, I say thank you for watching.